So I started to replace the crankset on my on that Schwinn that I have the other video on, and I decided to actually make a little video on how to do it, since some people might buy a bike like this and maybe not have quite the experience on how to do this. I already did some of it. First thing I did was remove the crank arms, and for that you're going to need a puller. So this squared taper. So it had a 14mm bolt. I took that out here. Then connected a puller, pulled it out. Another thing that you need two different tools for, and this one does bring it, is for the squared taper, you're going to take this tool, put it in there, and take it out. If I remember correctly, these are reverse threads. Alright, so what I found on the other side is that it has a little seal thing. Remember, these were loose bearings and these are cups, and it had a lock ring. So what that is for is, so on the other side you tighten this like adjusting the cones on a hub. You tighten this till there's no play, but it turns freely, and then you take the lock nut and you lock it in place, right? So what had happened is this was too tight, and therefore the axle actually didn't turn. So when they tightened this probably turned a little bit, tightened too much against the bearings, and it didn't turn. So if you're going to keep it and yours doesn't turn, what you want to do is loosen the lock nut, loosen this up, make sure it turns freely without play, and then tighten the lock nut while holding this steady with your tool so that you can adjust it that way, okay? So now we're going to install the bottom bracket, and so we have one of those hollow external bearing ones, and this is going to tell you how to set it up. So your bottom bracket is going to be either 68 or 73 millimeters wide. I actually took it's always good to have one of these. This at Harbor Freight I think cost $1 or $1.99. So I measured it. It's a 73 millimeter. So when you come here and it says if you're not using a chain guide or use a clamp-on chain guide, you're gonna, for a 73 millimeter, you're gonna use no spacers on the non-drive side and one spacer on the drive side. If it was a 68, you would use one spacer on the non-drive side and two spacers on the drive side, okay? Then make sure you check here, okay? So this is like this, okay, and it'll show you that is which way to tighten it, which this one, like we said, is reverse thread, okay? So take that, we're going to take these two spacers off, we don't need them, throw them in there, and we're going to put one spacer on the drive side, okay? Alright, so we're going to put back the, let me erase that a little bit, we're going to put the bottom bracket in. Like I said, we're going to put on the drive side one spacer. It's always good to put a little dab of grease on those threads. Okay, and it's going to form a little barrier, plus it's going to go in smoother. And these threads are very easy to damage, so always put them in by hand. And this, again, reverse thread, and it says it right there. It says tighten counterclockwise, and put it in there by hand until the bottom's out, and then use your tool. Alright, so they're already looking better. It's going to perform a lot better. It's actually going to turn, right? So we take a little tool. It's supposed to be 35 foot-pounds, but I don't have a way to put a torque wrench to it, so I'm gonna very gently tighten it, because that I think that spacer is plastic, but this cup is actually aluminum. So this kind of that should be enough. It's not going anywhere and it's not super tight. Then do the other side the same way. Dab a little grease on the other side, no spacer, and then we'll put the crank in. So I put a little bit of grease here on where the bearings are gonna catch. So on the bearing surfaces, I also put a little bit of grease in there, and on the other side. So we're going to come from this side and push our crank arm through. Alright, make sure the bearing stayed in there. Alright, and then we're going to take our sprocket. I went ahead and took the chain off, and we're just going to set it in there. Okay, and then we're going to take the bolt. We're going to put it in there with an 8mm, and then we're going to tighten it until there's no play. Okay, and I'm not going to do that right now. So, but that's basically it's done. And look how nice that turns with almost no effort. Okay, I'm not going to tighten that because I'm going to go ahead and take that back off, because I'm going to replace that that derailleur with a nicer Dior LX one that I have laying around. So I'm going to replace it with this one. Okay, it'll be a little nicer. Alright, so thanks for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. Any suggestions on the build, let me know.